Let's go back to the National Taxi Indaba that's currently underway in Germiston.
This is not sanitized, I don't know why. But for all other people, this was sanitized, but... No, thank you very much. Ayanda Ali Payne, the Program Director and Spokesperson of the Department of Transport, the Deputy Minister, Fikile Mbalula, the Chair of the Portfolio Committee, Mr. Msebenzi Zwane. It is important that you attend and you responded positively to the invitation, because the Portfolio Committee oversee our work and our commitments, and they hold us accountable. But the Portfolio Committee also, that's where we pass the laws. And Mr. Mzaiya, I know you to be a brave man. And the Lekgotla is important because we must open up and talk the truth and strategize in order to resolve the inadequacies that arise in the system. And the Portfolio Committee is in the process in terms of the bill on e-hailing we're talking about. We are running with it, and it's not behind. I think it was interrupted by the COVID-19. So we are on track with regard to that. MEC of Gauteng, Comrade Jacob Mamabolo, is a very strong partner, and leading Gauteng is the center of where things are happening. Tembing Kadimeng, the president of Salga. Salga is important to us because transport is a concurrent function. We are not like police, command and control. It's a concurrent function. People have got their own federations, smaller in their own corners. They've got a voice of some sort about what they can do, what they can spend. So it's a concurrent function, and local government is important in relation to this work. So when Salga is here, all the other issues that we'll be addressing in terms of the taxi industry, Salga is an important partner in terms of implementation. The president of Santaco, Ndate Taibosh, Philip Taibosh, is a leading partner in terms of what we want to achieve out of the Lekgotla. He's been around for many years. And during the times of Dala Omar, from the beginning, let me say, Meg Maharaj, Dala Omar, and then they came. I think who else came? Spundebele, Jeff Khadebe, Spundebele, and then Ben Martens, Dipuo Peters. Dipuo didn't come before Ben Martens or after. Dipuo Peters, Joe Maswanganyi, Bladen Zimande, and then Fikile Mbalula. And all other stakeholders present here, e-hailing, meter taxi, present here, distinguished guests. I want to thank you, distinguished guests, particularly from business and the unions. The unions are important because when I went to address Netlec, the unions were very vocal in relation to what must happen in this industry. And I'm shocked that only Fedusa turned up, but I did call COSATU in the morning because NACTU was going to come. And then I had an apology that because of prior commitments and short notice, they could not make it. But I thought they will live in sand, even if it's a shop steward somewhere, to come, because it's important for COSATU and all other unions. But I want to thank Fedusa from the bottom of my heart. Let's walk this journey. You were very vociferous at NEDLEC about Section 77 and the 100%. And I explained to you that what are the challenges that are facing this industry and what we'll be grappling upon. So the time of flexing the muscle in the discourse and not talking and assisting what needs to happen, I think we should put it in our back burner. And this is the process we are starting in the Department of Transport. And it's not a reaction. It's something we planned from day one. It's our mandate. When President Ramaphosa appointed me, at least not at night, daylight, none as a Minister of Transport, one of the priorities of the sixth administration, when we asked for your votes, we said we'll formalize this industry, we'll regulate it, and will ensure that it is subsidized. Didn't we say that? When we were asking for you, and you attempted to even form a political party, but we clobbered you. And that political party did not fly. So we went to the taxi people, and this is what we said we must do. We'll formalize this industry, and this is where we are. And government long took that decision. And we'll speak to that as we go. And I'm very happy that the unions are present here, and NEDLEC, the constituency of NEDLEC sector is here with us, and your input, sir, is valued. And don't pull back. I could see you were looking at Bosch and you were afraid to say all what you want to say. Don't pull back. Work with us. We want constructive engagement and realistic. Because part of the problem of South Africa, we have created a lot of problems for this country. And that is why we are here where we are today. When Bafana lose, we don't tell them straight in their face that they are losers. We say they tried. That's the problem of South Africa. When people are going wrong, we tell them that, no, they tried, shame. Because they try what? You are a loser, you have lost. And then you will only bring yourself up because you know that you have lost. And then you've got to work yourself up because you deserve to be there. And you must first look at the country, look at where you come from. Even at home, how you socialized. They will always tell you, asimazi kelo in our family. Ngoba bonke abantwana bamba nembeko lo ukrwada mazi uvelaphi. I don't know which passage he did not go through because all my children went through this. Rich or poor, people will pride themselves about family as a root. So it is important that we understand where we come from and that we deal with the subject issues head on in terms of this Lekgotla. A few months ago, and let me also thank the media for showing interest in this process because it is important. Because this is not just a discourse and a talk shop. It is a discourse with a meaning that must produce a result. But your interests show the importance of the taxi industry and transport in our country. Because you go with your cameras right in the taxi ranks. You are in the taxis because some of you don't have cars, but you know the life of public transport in the Republic. And I wish to acknowledge you and thank you for attending this discourse and follow up on populating our discussions. A few months ago, I declared my intention to convene a national taxi indaba, which will emerge with a groundbreaking compact. And that will take the transformation of the taxi industry to its logical conclusion. The outcomes of this industry will not be lip service, but a tangible and achievable program of action that will set the industry on a sustainable path. We began this journey right at the moment after we were appointed by the President. This remains part of our agenda. From NetMap and also from our manifesto of the sixth administration to complete what needed to be done for the taxi industry. Ladies and gentlemen, the history of the taxi industry is littered with gruesome tales of conflicts and violence. Some of it does persist today. That has left many people dead and families robbed of breadwinners. It is a history of struggles for survival. This is an industry that has pioneered its own growth and evolution despite difficult odds. When Alec Muemi, the DG, was tracing the history of this industry, he did allude to some of this. 1987-88, this industry was deregulated. Meaning that everybody must go and see for themselves. And then that is when apartheid regime used elements in the industry to sponsor public violence. That is why the concept of inkabi, when you want killers, you find them in the taxi industry. They are trained, they stay there. It comes with that particular history. Many initiatives aimed at forging unity in the industry have seen the light of the day over the last decades, and many have failed. Now, it is a decade of good and the bad, in the sense that there is an unfinished business, which is what we are about. And our forebears, as I recall their names, and among them, Comrade Dala Omar, laid the basis firmly in terms of regulating the taxi industry and undoing the past in terms of this industry. The first administration of the Democratic South Africa initiated the National Taxi Team, which is called the NTT, to find a lasting solution to the challenges facing the industry and to develop a blueprint for its sustainability. Ntate Bosch, wherever I'm with him and others, he speak at length about this particular process. We all know that the final recommendations of the NTT were a product of robust and honest engagements with both the industry and civil society. These recommendations, which were a product of consensus between the taxi industry and civil society, affirm the need for an industry that is formalized, effectively regulated, and economically empowered. It is 26 years into freedom, and the question you must ask, yes, you contribute 40 billion rand as the taxi industry combined. It can be fuel and all of that. But do you own anything in this industry? That is the question we must ask. And that is the question we must answer. Unity of the industry is sacrosanct and central to any form of regulation or empowerment. I've been assured by the industry that we all share a common vision of a united taxi industry that is able to speak in one voice. There are areas where we are not in agreement, but the public discourse platform will provide us with a platform to engage robustly and find each other. The National Taxi Lekgotla will be a platform where we will consolidate consensus on sustainable ways to formalize and regulate the industry. This will be underpinned by an economic empowerment model that must benefit every single taxi operator and not only those who are in leadership. an assessment of how far we have come since the acceptance of the final recommendations of the NTT will underpin the discussion documents that will be released in the coming weeks, covering various themes. The National Taxi Lekgotla will be about reimagining a taxi industry of the future, where it is a major player in the economy. Many critical challenges remain and require our collective wisdom and unity of purpose to tackle them in a decisive manner. Unity of the industry remains a pervasive challenge as violence and conflict driven by turf wars and leadership contestations continues unabated. Associations remain unregulated and operators are not held accountable for their conduct through an enforceable code of conduct. Leadership of the South African National Taxi Council, SANTACO, as a recognized industry representative body is contested. The taxi industry continues to operate as an informal sector on the fringes of our economy. It is not structured along legally recognized business units, and many operators do not contribute to the tax base in the form of corporate tax. I know that Bosch contests this point with me all the time, and he says that we pay tax. And I'm saying we don't pay corporate tax and do not comply with the labor laws to ensure workers are protected. In COVID-19, drivers, vulavalas and all of that could not benefit from UIF because they are not registered. They just wake up, go to work. When you die, you die. You don't get anything from the industry. So we need to shape up the business model. We need to shape up the empowerment model so that we are not made to fight over inqatha ngesixhosa ndiyazi ngesilungu. Lilahlelwe pha inqatha kodwa inyama ayikho, nixhaphile kodwa nixhaphe inqatha. Inyama imkile. The meat is gone, but you are only left with the fat, and you are fighting for the fat. So we must fight for the real thing, ownership. The economic model in this country, if we talk about radical economic transformation, it must be proven with the industry, the taxi industry. Radical economic transformation must be proven with this particular industry. These are not moments for insurrectionary phrase mongering. It's about tangible. What do we mean by empowerment? How does the government come to the party? How does the taxi industry also get to own this? You will listen to some of the things we are putting on the table for a robust debate going to the Indaba. The regulatory framework remains weak and ineffective due to a fragmented approach in law enforcement. Where you come from, Tembi, you are doing your own thing. In Bloemfontein, they're doing their own thing. Because transport is a concurrent function, it is important that we must unite our approach. We are hosting the National Indaba, or Lekgotla, from the 29th of October to the 30th of October, 2020, at the end of the October Transport Month, which means we've got September and the whole month to accelerate work and discussions on some of these important issues. However, the build-up towards the Lekgotla will consist of the following activities. Today is one of those. We launch the Lekgotla and explain to you through this launch what are we tackling, and which I'll go into the details in terms of that. We are tackling a fundamental and close the gap on the following issues. Regulating the industry, which I will go into deeper details on that. Unity of the industry, formalization of the industry, empowerment and subsidy of the industry. And once all these four are achieved, then we can talk professionalization. What the DG is dreaming of, that is, you won't get it in the text. What we want at the end is professionalization of a driver who knows that. Have you all fastened your safety belts? Have you all fastened your safety belts? Go through the routine and ensure that everybody else, everything is done. Single ticketing, money does not circulate. 4x4, I like the seats. We kill it. Professionalization will be achieved as the fifth element of the four, if we agree. And we've got to then ensure that all of those things are addressed in this indaba. There is not only a consensus, but there is an agreement. It's going to be robust in a sense that we are not going to go to Stellenbosch, to all other universities to help us. They will help us at the end. But to begin to interrogate these issues is going to be informed by the practical experience of those who operate in this industry. We don't want somebody who talk about taxis, but he's never owned a taxi. And he doesn't understand the challenges the taxi industry is dealing with. That's what is important. Those are the four issues we need to resolve in terms of the taxi indaba. We will have discussion documents that will be released in the next coming weeks. The task team charged with coordinating this effort will engage with various stakeholders, as we'll have done. And we have seen some of the stakeholders, and I'm also today inviting them to continue to be part of us, and broadly speaking, everyone else to make a contribution. It does not matter. Organized and unorganized, make a contribution in this particular process. We'll have webinars because we're not allowed to have mass gatherings. We will not be in a position to do that. Webinars, we'll have them, and so on, to engage with stakeholders, opinion makers, those who've got a view on the following issues, what must happen to the taxi industry. We will also benchmark ourselves against countries that have achieved the result on these four issues. We don't operate in an island. We will look in the African continent, which country has achieved formalization, have fully integrated with government, have implemented subsidy. We know the United Kingdom is one model. We know New York City is one model. We will also need to know in the African continent, in situations like us, which governments have actually achieved the same result. And also look at the path we have traversed since from 1996. We will have provincial lekgotlas in the provinces, starting from the district, because we want our people to speak and speak for themselves. So the launch of this public platform is an invitation to the taxi industry, to the workers, commuters, and the rest of civil society to engage with this discussion and tackle the opportunity to participate in formulating the blueprint for taxi industry of the future. The discussion documents that will inform the content of the public discourse and the provincial lekgotla, ultimately the National Taxi Lekgotla, cover the following issues, which I said I will elaborate. First, unity and leadership. The NTT final recommendations that were accepted by government directed that leadership structures must be established at national, provincial, and regional levels, representing the entirety of the industry. The leadership structure must represent all types of taxi operations. Short distance, long distance, and meter taxis at all levels. Over the last 25 years, a lot of progress was made in this regard with the establishment of Santaco in 2001. The diagnostic path we have traversed and the progress made over the last 25 years means that we must have an honest and robust conversation on all these issues. These include the leadership of the industry and whether there is a need to review some of the choices we have made over the years to accommodate others. And what approach are we going to take in relation to that? We recognize Santaco as the leader of the industry up until today, and I explained that even to the president. And to us in government, that is why we even support Santaco financially. It's not a secret. For the first time I heard at the portfolio committee, Mr. Chairperson of the portfolio committee, that this thing is not known. How can we give 25 million to Santaco and you don't know? Then you don't read annual reports of the Department of Transport. You only read annual reports of the Department of Sports. Because if you read transport annual reports, you will know that Santaco is sponsored, supported by government. Its offices are in government. And it's not correct again to say that their financial statements are in a total state of disaster. And DG can speak on that. It's incorrect. What has actually happened is that there are disagreements between bodies that have decided to go their own, like NTA leadership in this country. And in this particular instance, they've got a view and a perspective in terms of taxi leadership in the Republic. And we have been talking to NTA even last night, till midnight, we're talking to them, including about their participation today. And to explain to them that government recognizes Santaco. And that is why Philip Daibosh, not because he comes from Bloemfontein or wherever he comes from, I found him here, spoke today. Not that NTA does not have an opinion about what must happen. They do robust views and they believe in diversity and all of that in terms of broadening this, but government can never deal with the taxi industry if it's fragmented. So we must have an honest conversation about this particular matter. And it is important to do that. Even throughout the pandemic and managing what is happening in the country, we have been talking to Santaco and to NTA in all fronts as government in engaging with transport in the Republic. And the process of this Lekgotla will examine some of these particular issues. And they speak about 2001 and where they come from, where it was Santaco and it changed to Santaco to accommodate each other. But in the end, that did not happen. And our biggest mistake, again, as government, which we need to criticize ourselves, we allowed that gap to continue over the years. And we never address it. I don't know who you want to address it. You allow the gap to grow and then things to develop legs, the situation to continue. Now, President Ramaphosa says we cannot allow that. We must deal with the taxi industry as a united force so that we can address the issues that we're talking about. And moreover, this is a black industry. Gone are the days when black people used to own taxis for white people and they become front. But today, black people own taxis, but bayashona ngomashonisa. Because when you get retrenched in the mind, the first business you think of is a taxi. And then you come here, you drown. Gone is the business. So we seek to address all these discussions going forward in the Lekgotla. The discussions will also look at models that include making a case for the apex leadership structure to be a council, whose leaders must not be encumbered on associations. We have no intention of elevating or establishing an association to a position of an apex industry representative body. Our commitment is towards a council that truly represents every operator without fear or favor. The Taxi Lekgotla must interrogate and ask the question, what kind of council should be an apex industry representative body? Should it be a statutory body established through an act of parliament with roles and powers prescribed in law? Or the current status quo must actually continue? Should it be a professional body mandated to develop and enforce industry standards? Should it be a voluntary association that exists to look after the interest of its members? On regulation, discussions about regulation primarily revolve around operating licenses and enforcement. The challenges experienced over the years relating to the issuing of operating licenses, which includes challenges of non-responsiveness of municipalities, TEMBI, to applications resulting in saturation of routes, as these operating licenses are issued without due regard to transport planning. The point that you yourself was talking about, dear Mayor. The current planning framework and the extent to which it affects the issuing of operating licenses will come under scrutiny with a view to emerge with a model that advances our objectives. The prevalence of illegal operators affects the industry and government in many ways. We are saying, as the Department of Transport, in terms of INATIs, we've got 137 taxi operators. But we know, as I speak now with you, we've got more or less 300,000 on the ground. Yanung ka Setswana ba re ke tla le hepa yang le tlhakatlhakane yana. Now, how am I going to feed you when you are so mixed up? You must all come by queue. Means it must be regulated. When we see you on the road, there must be proper regulation that you are on point. That is what needs to happen. Finally, the legal operators, they shrink the revenue base by complicating the supply side of business through uncontrolled entry into the market. Secondly, they provide perverse incentive for conflict. Thirdly, they worsen the industry safety profile as they are more prone to employing illegal and dangerous tactics to get customers and maximize profits. Fourthly, they distort planning and by extension adversely affect the efficacy of planning and law enforcement. Lastly, they perpetuate criminality. The discussions will also look at strong disincentives aimed at those who operate illegally, with penalties that include monetary penalties, impoundment of vehicles, suspension of driver's licenses, or combination of measures. However, this conversation will take into account the current reality of the significant number of operators in the industry without operating licenses. This includes a number of e-hailing providers and 7-seater vehicles on our roads. When we clear ourselves going forward, it means when we undertake the route, it means you must bring all your particulars to the fore. But this is a discussion we are basically going to have, and how we foresee the regulating process in South Africa, so that we deal with legit people within the system. Now, coming to industry empowerment model. The Taxi Lekgotla must emerge with an empowerment model that truly empowers the industry, with the real beneficiaries being individual operators. We have committed to reimagining the taxi recapitalization program such that the real beneficiaries of this massive public investment are taxi operators, rather than commercial banks, retailers, and other corporates. Now, you have seen a movie before we started. That is why we brought you here. I wanted us to be in the sun so that we can get some vitamin D. That will be good for COVID-19. Now they put us here, and it's cold. Chances of contracting this disease are 100%. The sooner we finish, the better. But the sun was the brilliant place to be at. Now, this is recapitalization, destroying of taxes and all of that. And we are saying that in terms of the empowerment model, we're spending billions in terms of this project. We must reimagine this in terms of the discussion. We know that we've got an impasse with the taxi industry on some of these particular issues. Our empowerment model is also going to speak to recapitalization in terms of what needs to be done. To date, government has spent in excess of 4 billion rand and will spend more billions over the next 5 years in this particular project. The end game is a taxi industry that is able to recapitalize itself, and benefits of this business cascading down to the last operator on the ground. Discussions include the establishment of corporate entities as empowerment vehicles of choice to ensure economic benefits reach all operators in the industry. Various options are being considered, which include either establishing a national cooperative bank owned by the taxi industry, or establishing a national private company that will participate in economic activity on behalf of the operators, or a combination of various models. That is the discussion we must resolve at the INDAB. We must not be apologetic about creation of a business value chain that is entirely owned by the taxi industry, with strict conditions to comply with tax and labor laws, alongside conduct that reinforces unity. We say that we pour fuel, we fix the tires, where we buy the product. In the value chain, where does that end up? How does it basically benefit the taxi industry? The Lekgotla must agree that operators who get involved in conflict and taxi violence should face severe penalties, which may include withdrawal of their operating licenses and any economic benefit sponsored by government. We have made a firm commitment to introduce a subsidy system that includes full participation of the taxi industry. The taxi industry transports on a daily basis commute 15 million people, as in comparison to trains and all other modes of transport. In South Africa, we are talking about an integrated transport network, IPTN, going forward, and this is what we are implementing. And the taxi industry is an integral part of that. When we raise the issue that the taxi industry can and should be subsidized by government, many began to ask, no, it's not possible. Certain things must actually happen. So when we talk about regulating, formalization, and all of those things, among others include empowerment and subsidy. And that is why in our planning cycle, we are planning that by 1st April in the next financial year, once we had concluded the issues of debate and discussion at the taxi industry, subsidy for the industry will kick in. for the next financial year. Those discussions are at an advanced stage between the Department of Transport and our breadwinner, Tito Mboweni, in the country. Because we've got to finalize those discussions so that in terms of our planning, we are able to effect this into practical implementation by the 1st of April, not because it's my birthday date, 1st of April, and it's not April's full date. 1st of April, we kick in the implementation of what this Lekgotla have resolved, and that includes subsidization. We are hard at work at the present moment as a department to reprioritize whatever we've got, including the grants, to meet the goals of what we want to achieve at the Indaba. So everything else will be looked at in terms of what we want and what we want to achieve going forward. So the Lekgotla is not just a talk shop. It's important to our goals. It is a conversation that we must have, and we can't talk past each other. It is a compact we must produce. Today we launch, and the 30th of August, we produce a deal for everyone. And that deal for meter taxis and e-hailing is already in the pipeline in the form of the legislation that is coming into being. And that deal will also envisage this reimagining that must include the perspective on carbon emissions. We must not be caught unprepared in this country like it happened all the time. You ask people, how did Uber arrive in this country when there is government and it was not regulated? Nobody is able to answer you. And you ask them about many other things, including the e-tolls. Because you go to Germany, you find people not using toll gates. You copy that, you bring it to South Africa. Abantu balapha baqhela toll gate ukuma babhatale baqhithe. Yeah, every 5 minutes. They didn't know about it. They thought it's World Cup. Later on, they were told, hey, we are patara mhlekazi every time udlula. But yeah, ngisho nabo bangakhokhi ama e-tolls. Even those who don't pay e-tolls in Soweto, ayaswakhokhi baba ama e-tolls and all of that. But taxis and buses transporting the working class and everybody don't pay e-tolls. It's only me and you who's supposed to pay. But let's leave that discussion, because you will second guess me again on that one. It's one another headache that I must resolve, and I'm on the process of resolving. So now it is important that we must understand that these are the things that we want to achieve and that we want to implement by the beginning of the new financial year, and introduce the subsidy scheme for the taxi industry. So taxi industry, majority black and a black industry. We subsidize buses, fine and good. Yes, we'll continue to do that. They carry our people. But what do we say? We say public transport must be safer and affordable. So when we talk about subsidy, we don't only talk about the operator, we mean even those who use public transport. It must be affordable. And it must be professional. Everybody must use taxis back and forth to work. Today, to pay for your own taxi per month is about 18,000 and 15,000. You must pay. That's why a taxi driver is always in a hurry, because umoshe iskhathi. And then when he arrives there and the owner is counting the money, he says, uyachelta ka wena. Udla imali yami. Why le mali shorta namhlanje? Because every day he knows how much he gets. Worse with COVID-19 is worse, because people are not commuting on a daily basis. So we have made that firm commitment, and we are announcing it here today as government. This is what we are going to be discussing when we talk about empowerment model with the taxi industry. And we're going ahead with its implementation in the new financial year. Discussion on professionalization include a number of important issues that impact on commuters and other road users. In addition to addressing universal access to taxis and related infrastructure for those who are physically challenged, and discussion will also entail the following in terms of professionalization: road safety, the conduct of taxi operators on the road, displaying flagrant disregard of the law, and the rights of other road users remains a pervasive problem and will find expression in the public discourse. Options on the table for discussion include a proposal for an enforceable code of conduct supported by a penalty regime, which may, amongst others, include a form of demerit system similar to ARTO. The second point in terms of professionalization of the industry include a discussion on customer care and community safety. Shoddy customer service and safety of commuters continue to characterize industry operations. Penalties for operators who violate customer care standards, which may be incorporated into the proposed code of conduct, will be considered. Complaints mechanisms are also under consideration, and this must be effective with tangible consequences. Lastly, in terms of professionalization is the gender-based violence. The prevalence of gender-based violence in the taxi industry remains a source of serious concern. This discussion has been muted for too long, and it is time it is confronted head-on. And active measures must be put in place to address this decisively. Such measures must include safety of women and children in the taxi environment, with particular emphasis on the girl child. And these are the strategic issues that we are placing in the discourse, debate, and solutions as we move towards the Taxi Lekgotla. And this Lekgotla is very important to basically fix and resolve some of the outstanding issues that are important for this particular industry. And to sum them up, once towards the conclusion, is to deal with the question of the regulation of the industry, and to deal with the issue of formalization, to deal with the issue of unity of the industry, to deal with the issue of empowerment and subsidy of the industry. We've got many models, but we must at the end agree to one. And the chief amongst that is how we envisage the subsidy for the taxi industry, the one we seek to implement. We are putting money aside, reprioritizing our grant framework to ensure that we subsidize the taxi industry. That is what is going to come at our doorstep. So, if you like it, this compact will come from a rigorous process of negotiations. So this is a process, pyramid process we are launching today. We are launching a process that goes to everywhere and for a robust discussion and the debate in terms of what must actually happen. And when we finish by October, we've got the resolutions. And those resolutions, some of which require legislation, they will then be taken forward. But those in terms of economic model that must be implemented will be implemented with immediate effect. But over and above that, we cannot achieve all of these things. They will remain a pipe dream if ever there is no unity within the taxi industry. Many people are getting older and they are passing on, and as we pass on the baton, we've got to agree on these particular issues. And most of the time I like to say this, I see Santaco being challenged and NTA, they fight a lot, but they agree on one thing: money. Abayazwana, there's no fight. They agree on about money. Uguti, where money must go, they agree. We are resolving a number of issues as I move towards conclusion. That include the relief fund. The DG has been mandated to engage on that. We're going to resolve on those particular issues. The regulations were at 100% at the present moment. We're beginning to normalize and all of that. Long distance is hard hit and they're still at 70%, and we address some of these particular issues. This part of the project that we are at here in terms of recapitalization must be brought to its logical conclusion. And we'll bring it to its logical conclusion as we embark on the new path, because we still have money. We've got cars we've got to still recapitalize. We must finalize that particular process and bring it to a conclusion. Last time I was here, building on what Blayton Nzimande, former minister, has started, and then we could not find each other with the taxi industry. But all of those issues will bring to conclusion as we embark on the new path. As you listen to our story, we are not starting something new. We are finishing the road. All the past ministers have done their job, but they did not finish. But the vision was there. So we're not starting something new. Something new is Uber. Inchai Uber is new on the block. And when I was in the police, I used to compare Uber and the lifestyle. Hey, I was attacked by Ntate Taibosh. Or Mbalula Kulizong on taxi, Manje is talking what he's saying. And now they were fighting with the meter taxis and all of that. And we had to bring in the legislation. And salute to Joma Swangani and Minister Blayton Nzimande. They started that particular process, and to all of you who participated in that. And I agree with you, we are bringing that, the chair of the committee is here, we are bringing that to a logical conclusion. And that is the work that has been started by my forebears, and we're concluding that. And this recapitalization process will inform and be part of our reimagining the new approach going forward. But for now, it is important we must ease, and the leadership of the country must talk, and we must converse. And there will be no holy cows. Don't keep yourself in the corner and not come to the debate, because you lose the opportunity. There is a steering committee that is coordinating all the discussions, and we are all invited to participate in this particular process. I therefore invite all taxi operators, taxi drivers, and all South Africans to join us in conversation as we put together a blueprint for a taxi industry that is an integral part of the formal economy and is truly empowered. Masijule Ngengo, I thank you. Thank you very much.